Welcome. I'm Steve Scher. If you're driving on the freeway in Seattle, you see all the cranes, you might think to yourself somebody's playing with an erector set. Seattle is changing rapidly. Brad Hinthorne is principal at Perkins+Will Architecture and Design. Good to talk to you.
Nice to be here.
When you look out your window at 2nd Avenue, you see the city changing.
I do.
Do you have any favorite buildings you see coming up?
Oh my goodness. Other than the ones we're doing?
You can count the ones you're doing.
No, I think there's a lot of exciting things going on. Two of the more exciting ones we're working on right now are the Allen Institute for Brain Science in South Lake Union, which is very interesting programmatically and sort of fundamentally as an anchor to that part of the city, of course, which is incredibly active. And then some residences we're doing right on the Olympic Sculpture Park, which are very exciting. So lots of different project types and interesting stuff.
You know, the South Lake Union was criticized sometimes for a sameness. Do you find that the newer buildings that are coming in are pushing against that initial flood of design?
Yeah, I think it's changing significantly, actually, because there's finally a mix of program types. You know, it started with a lot of biotech and sort of biotech wannabe techie space, and I think it's a challenge. First of all, I think it's a challenge when you try to build an entire neighborhood over such a short period of time and expect it to be, you know, different and diverse and unique. So that's a difficult thing to pull off. But I think the fact that, you know, with some zoning changes, you're going to get some diversity in the height of the buildings. You're starting to get, obviously, a ton of residential down there. And so you're starting to see people on the street, which drives restaurants, which drives, you know, everything. So it's just diverse, much more diverse.
What's the Allen building going to have that's unique?
Well, a couple things that are unique. One is we're reusing a historic structure that was there that was a car dealership. They're basically doing, they're mapping the brain, and so they're doing really high-tech imaging research on brains, and then it also has a piece of Paul Allen's art collection in one of the spaces. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
So
do
you incorporate that across the whole building? Or just
no, it's in one space. It's along the sort of east-facing facade, and then there's a giant atrium inside that will facilitate sort of interaction between various disciplines of science. So, pretty exciting.
It's an amazing institute, the Allen Institute.
Yeah.
And what they try to accomplish is such big thinking.
Yeah.
Did you have to incorporate big thinking into the way you were designing the building?
Yeah, I think you know, we thought hard about how the program would be manifested in the architecture. And one of the unique things about a private institute like that is, you know, in a more academic type setting, scientists are always sort of jockeying for grant money, and in this case, they all have the same grantor.
You wanted to make a statement? Does the building make a statement? It's also right near the lake, so
yeah.
It's one of the entrances.
No, it's very much an anchor and a sort of a centerpiece to, you know, and an arrival for South Lake Union. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting building.
How has Seattle architects and architecture responded to this explosion? It seems a little different than it was 20 years ago.
Well, it's a lot different than it was 5 years ago. I know that.
So, is that right?
Oh yeah, I mean there wasn't a you know, in the sort of deep recession, there was nothing going on. I mean,
but did architects have to respond in some way to the new demands, the new kinds of spaces?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody's sort of ramping up, and I think what happened in the recession was a lot of people left the profession, and so there's a shortage of qualified staff with, you know, 10 or 15 years of experience that are, you know, really good and experienced.
Wow.
So and everybody's feeling it.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
You're looking around, you're looking for good people.
Yeah, absolutely.
What does that mean for the coming decade then?
It means we got to train people and take the people that we've got that are young and right out of school and really get them ramped up on getting excited about Seattle.
What do you want them to understand? Those people you're training. I mean, what do you want them to understand about Seattle and about what Seattle can build?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Seattle's an unbelievable place, first of all. I mean, there's incredible wealth here. There's incredible you know, diversity of businesses that are thriving, you know, whether it's airplanes or coffee or brain research or, you know, you name it, online retailing or giant warehouse retailing or, you know, whatever kind of retailing you want. I mean, Seattle is unbelievably diverse, and, you know, we see a lot of people moving here from other parts of the country because they want to be part of this sort of vibe or scene or whatever it is that's unique about Seattle.
Do you see them bringing new ideas or new buildings
that
haven't been here before?
Yeah, I think there's, in my mind, there's a real push, more so than there has been, you know, for innovation, whether it's the waterfront and the stuff that, James Corner's doing along the waterfront, and the sort of some of the retail things that are being conceived, or whether it's, the sort of density and urban infill that's happening on Capitol Hill, or the stuff that's going to happen along where the viaduct comes down, or the stuff that, Amazon's doing with their big spheres, and, the commitment that Amazon's made to sort of be in the city and not be out in the burbs, I think is significant and transformative for what the city's going to be.
Are there new materials getting incorporated into building that we haven't seen in the last few years? Because I see orange panels and other things.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a couple things I would say. There's always some new material that's out there that everybody wants to try. It seems like the new thing now is colored glass. I think you're going to look back in 10 years and say, oh, wow, it must have been in the 2000s when people figured out they could make colored glass, or, there's a lot of different metal products that are out there. I think the other thing that's big right now is, there's extreme pressure to do things fast and cost effective, and so there's a lot of prefabrication happening right now, whether it's exterior window walls or mechanical piping or whatever it is, things that can be built quickly in a warehouse with very.
Is that good?
It's great. Very high quality, saves money. It's built in a controlled environment. They bring it out, they build it. It's less labor.
Does that affect the design of the building?
Not really. No, not really. It's just faster and more efficient.
You have building blocks that you can assemble in different ways.
Yeah, it's just more efficient.
You said you're working on residencies down by the sculpture park.
Mm-hmm.
What makes them unique, first of all?
Well, the setting, for one thing. I mean, it's literally abuts the Olympic Sculpture Park, so it has unobstructed views over the sculpture park into the water over Elliott Bay. And I think the narrowness of the site makes it unique. It's basically a single loaded corridor. The building's only 55 feet wide, and so it's just a beautiful building that we hope gets built.
Well, why is it so narrow?
The site's just really narrow.
Was that a requirement for all the people that have built behind?
No, it's just the parcel's just narrow for some reason. It's not unlike a condo building we did at 5th and Madison a few years ago. That was similar, narrow building across from the library.
A green building.
Yeah, it's really narrow. So,
are a lot of the work you're doing also LEED or green focused?
Very. I think it's sort of become first of all, Perkins+Will is, I think, recently named the #1 green sustainable firm by the U.S. Green Building Council a couple weeks ago. So it's part of our DNA and our culture of what we do. But I also think it's becoming sort of table stakes as there's the pressure to be more efficient. I think there's less pressure to get buildings necessarily LEED certified, but to make them really high performing and be able to measure their performance over time.
What's the difference?
Is really well, the LEED certification process is really an administrative process through the U.S. Green Building Council. It really has nothing to do with how well the building performs over time necessarily. It's just sort of a checklist of, do you have bike parking and do you those kind of things.
When you say perform, you mean it's energy efficient?
Yeah, I mean, you can actually measure the energy performance of the building over time.
Water usage.
Water usage, energy usage, whatever it is, power.
The industry has had to respond to that because the industry is one of the big emitters somewhere along the line.
The biggest, yeah.
Of greenhouse gas?
Yeah.
Do people feel they're well informed enough to build the kind of buildings? I mean, do you have a sense that we have the tools we need, or is there still stuff out there?
I think we have the tools we need. I think there's, the city also has a lot of incentives now. They have different pilot programs for living buildings or net zero buildings, or things that you can do that are very, very efficient, and they can either expedite your permitting, or they have programs that allow you to get additional square footage if you do certain things. And so there's a lot of things that are, and there's also just a lot more sophisticated owners now that have much higher expectations of how their building performs.
You're talking about people who are spending a lot of money on their buildings, and they have the money when residences as well. How do you guys respond if you had the ability and a client that wanted to build lower cost housing? Do you have the technology? Do you have the design that you could build what we call affordable housing?
Yeah, we're doing some of it.
What were you doing?
Well, we're doing some. We've done some, 5/2 type wood frame construction. I think it's actually interesting. There's actually, it's in some ways it's more interesting to build a building within a budget with a constraint in terms of how you be creative about how you utilize certain materials, and I didn't used to think that. But there's some there's some great architects in the city. There's some great architects in the country who are doing unbelievable AIA award-winning projects with very minimal materials. I mean, it's really not about using expensive materials. It's about, you know, good detailing and understanding what certain materials can do and not do. And I mean, you can do beautiful things with, you know, plywood. It's not. You don't have to use titanium or, you know, marble.
You're excited about the future.
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because we still have to build a lot of buildings.
There's a lot of stuff to do still. I mean, it's great. Seattle, I mean, I think it's rare that a city is, you know, I mean, there's a lot of cities in the country that wish they had our problems, right? Traffic and cranes and construction. And I think it's rare for a city to be sort of clicking on all cylinders, right? So they're clicking and you know, for the first time in a long time, there's office demand. And now there's a ton of apartment demand, and there's single-family home demand. There's biotech demand. There's, you know, civic buildings demand. There's condos being talked about for the first time in a decade. And so, you know, and restaurants, and, you know, for the whole city to be clicking on all cylinders is pretty rare, especially in the architectural business where, you know, our practice is relatively diverse. And so we're building transit, and we're building office, and we're building biotech, and we're building housing, and we're building libraries, and I mean, everything feeds off itself.
Yeah, you're making me tired.
Yeah, I know.
Brad Hinthorne, Principal, Perkins+Will Architecture Design. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And thank you for viewing us.